Welcome back to the Everyday Hair Colorist, and today's guest I'm really thrilled to have on board, Mr. Paul Edmonds. Paul is a multiple salon owner, award-winning, BAFTA member. I mean, the list goes on. Welcome, Paul.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm great, thanks. Thanks for coming on board here to talk about your journey.
You're very welcome. Oh, my journey. I feel a bit like Forrest Gump. I think it's one of those things where things happen to people and you either take advantage of that moment or you don't. And maybe I took advantage of a lot of things that maybe I shouldn't have, and you kind of go like, oh, shit. Anyway.
Well, we look forward to hearing those. I wanted to start off, Paul, with how did it all start for you? So you're not originally from London, are you?
No, I'm from a small village. Well, in fact, it was a small village in the West Midlands called Old Swinford. It's near Stourbridge, so it's kind of in between Birmingham and Worcester. And I actually wanted to be an architect, but I flunked my physics exam, so it meant I had to do another year, and I didn't really want to do that. So therefore, I kind of thought, oh, I'll do design. And my girlfriend at the time was a hairdresser, and she was just like, why don't you do hairdressing while you're waiting to go to design college? And I was just like, yeah, why not? Kind of, it's one of those things where you think it may be an idea. But anyway, I did it. And one, I found out I was really good at it. And the other thing was that I found it quite easy. I hate to say it. And other people, I was a junior, so I did an apprenticeship.
Right.
So I just found it really easy. So I actually got through all my training in just over a year, about a year and a half, and I was on the floor working as a stylist. And
that's pretty amazing, because back when we trained, and and before then as well, it was like 5 years. It was 3 years an apprenticeship.
Yeah, I signed a 5-year indenture.
Yes.
So it's quite an amazing thing. But I was lucky that my boss allowed me to kind of carry on. Anyway, I did that, and then I became kind of a bit bored because I was a top stylist in London, in Birmingham rather, and I trained in Birmingham, I should say, and it was kind of a bit weird going from doing that and getting bored, and just I wanted to be the best I could possibly be. Right,
so you were driven at an early age.
I'm afraid so.
Yeah.
And I think ambition is one of those very tricky things that you have to temper slightly, because sometimes it can push you in directions that you shouldn't really be going. But anyway, I kind of decided I'd go to London, came down to London, and I worked for a company called Jingles, and I really went there because I wanted to then be an educator, and they had a school, and they were all ex-Sassoon people, and it was really good, actually. They taught me masses of things. At that point, I was a little bit of a know-all. As they used to say, Know-all Edmonds. That was me.
Did they used to call you that? I mean, that's fascinating to me, because I only know you as this very sort of calm, well-thought-out man.
No.
But there was obviously a time when you were just really pushy and...
I was crazy. I was like that. Need to do more, need to do more. I need to be better, need to be better. So I kind of drove people insane. Anyway, I worked there for a few years, and I worked on the artistic team, and we did shows, and I remember doing a show at the Albert Hall. And I remember the first time I went on stage, and God knows how many thousands of hairdressers are in front. And before I went on, one of the guys I was working with said, "Are you nervous at all?" I went, "No, not at all." So she went, "Oh."
Yes, oh.
Oh. Anyway, I got on stage, and I was fine for the first 3-4 minutes. And then the guy who used to run Jingles came up and said, "So, Paul, tell me about what you're doing." And I said, "Oh, I started doing this haircut about 3 months ago." And he kind of went, "That's a long time to do a haircut." And it completely threw me. And so I kind of... And at that point, my right kneecap started to tremble so intensely that you cannot believe it. I thought everyone in the audience can see my right kneecap trembling. And I've never had a thing like that where you have a spasm. That's awful. Anyway, I got through it, and my kind of 3-month haircut actually worked out really well. But anyway, so from there, I then went to...
How old were you by this time, Paul, when you started doing this, when you got to London?
I came to London when I was 21.
21.
And then once I'd kind of trained, I guess I was 23. And so I was 23, 24 at this point.
And so you got to London, and then you joined Jiggles, but you had to retrain with them. So this guy who's the senior stylist who'd done it in a year, who was super keen, wanted to learn, and then how did that feel for you at that point? Can you remember?
I was fine because I wanted to learn more. I just wanted to know more. So retraining was never a problem for me. And again, it was supposed to be quite a long retraining, and I did it really quickly. I've got one of those brains that picks up visually. I'm a bit thick when it comes to doing anything else, but I can pick up visually.
I wouldn't say that about you, but okay.
So anyway, so at that point, my wife was working at Daniel Galvin, and I used to pop in there to see her. And Daniel was quite funny because he drove me insane because he always said, "Why don't you come and work for me? I hear you're a really good hairdresser." And I was just like, "No, you're not really my kind of hairdresser. So, I don't do your kind of big blow dry kind of things," which is slightly ironic.
Yeah, for everyone out there, for everyone listening, that is slightly ironic now, being in the middle of Knightsbridge, where the big blow dry is still very popular.
Yeah. Anyway, I was very Sassoon orientated, so I was very kind of cut lines, asymmetric, kind of leave bits out, do all that type of stuff. Anyway, he finally said, "What will it take you to come and work for me?" And I went, "I'd only come here as the artistic director." So he went, "Okay, fine. And how much do you want?" And I told him, and he kind of said, "Okay, fine." And that's that thing where you kind of go, "Oh," very quiet, "Oh," because
they gave you everything you wanted, and then you had to take the job.
Yeah. And I'd never worked as an artistic director, so I had no idea what it meant or what it kind of would do. And part of my remit was to train the rest of the stylists up to doing really good haircuts, because it was a very kind of arty kind of haircutting where you kind of molded it, you carved a shape.
Right.
And I cut a shape. So I was very kind of different. Anyway, that was my Waterloo. So I then had to do it. Anyway, I did it. And I think all the stylists hated me for the first 6-9 months. And I really mean they didn't like me at all.
It's always like that when you walk into an established salon, though, isn't it? And there's a clique. And there's sort of like, well, who's this one? What's this one going to do? There's always that sort of fear.
Also, I was really young. Now, look at it now. And I thought if someone came into the salon at that age and said, "Right, I'm going to teach you all how to do this properly."
Yes, it's sort of slightly the arrogance of it, I suppose people might say. Yeah?
Yeah. Anyway, now you know why I'm the way I am now.
Paul is, everyone who's listening, Paul is like the calmest, gentlest soul in the world. I've never seen him get angry, maybe once, and he's always the calming influence in the conversation, always. So this is quite fun.
Yeah. So Arrogance I wasn't like really bad, but I was just a bit cocky, to be truthful.
Right. That's youth, though, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's, youth's one of those terrible things. And it's a great thing because it drives you forward. It makes you impulsive, makes you do things. On the bad side is that you jump in there where angels fear to tread and you say all the things that shouldn't be said. But anyway,
we've actually had some younger people on much younger, in their sort of 20s on the podcast, younger than me. And it is funny because there is that difference between guests who are a bit more seasoned and the younger guests, and the difference in the way they approach things. But I suppose we all were a little bit like that when we were out there, because we wanted to be the best that we could be.
Yeah, and it's really hard to temper that, I have to say. I think it is. you need that youth, and I love seeing people that are really enthusiastic and have that get up and go. And it's just sometimes you have to kind of say to them, it's fine, there's time.
Yeah.
There is time. Don't get into this thing where you have to go out there and prove everything now. You don't have to prove everything now. Just build up what you do, how you do it, and just kind of gradually go forward. I think I rushed, and that's one of I'd say I have very few regrets in my life, but one of my regrets is rushing forward and also not enjoying the moment.
The moment, yes.
And so many times I rushed ahead, and really it's a stupid thing to do because you don't need to.
That's 2020 hindsight, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's, in fact, I learnt it at Daniel Galvin. There were lots of hairdressers who originally I was just like, they don't know how to do a haircut. They could do hair that was beyond belief.
Yes.
And they didn't work to my way of working. And at that point, they were using razors, and I didn't use a razor. It was kind of a razor. Only old people use razors on a haircut. And it's really kind of funny how times have changed. And now it's anything to get a result. Absolutely,
it is anything to get a result, isn't it? However it means. Do you think at that period of time, though, there was this split in the industry that was... So when was this? 70s?
It'd be...
Mid-70s? Early 80s?
Early 80s. So
early 80s.
I came down 78.
You had your old guard,
yeah,
who were like Mr. Teasy Weezy and all that kind of thing, so doing all those fantastic...
Raymond and who else was there? Leonard. Leonard is a perfect example of that.
So they did all that super fabulous dressing and that skill set that somehow has been lost a little bit, I think. Yeah. And then there was the Sassoon crowd, which was the new crowd, which was the art form of cutting a line and all the precision cutting.
Yeah, and it was great because there were there was a definite fork, because you had John Frieda that went off in that Leonard kind of thing, and you had the kind of younger, I'd say, set that did the kind of cutting, and then you had the Tony and Guy that came in, and they revolutionised kind of the whole of hairdressing in a way.
Yeah, big changes in the UK at that time.
Huge. And what's funny is that I was looking back at some old pictures in books of when I was kind of doing hair, and I'd looked at some of the hair that I did, and it's just like...
It dates, doesn't it?
I'd be really embarrassed to say I did it now, because it was quite big. Yeah.
So you're on the floor, you're artistic director, you're trying to build some rapport with the team, or not?
No, I did. I have to say I built a great rapport with the team, and they all liked me in the end. And it was that thing of I ended up learning so much when I was there, because I also did that thing which I think you have to do, is I will show you how I do something, but I really want to see how you do it.
Yes.
Because I think it's really important that I see what you do and how you do it. And, there were some great hairdressers in there, but they just didn't work to my kind of tune. And in fact, in the end, they liked the stuff that I did, and I loved the stuff that they did, and they showed me how to do massive things. It came to a point where we kind of went our separate ways, and I went then to work for a friend who just opened a salon just under the IPC Tower in south of the river. And again, it's one of those things I thought, I'll do this for a year. Then I was under a contract, so I couldn't work anywhere in London.
Right.
So I had to get out of the contract.
Those gardening clauses.
Yeah, lovely. So a year. So I worked for him. And in fact, what was strange there was I ended up meeting all the head people at IPC. So like Woman's Own, Woman's Journal, Marie Claire. I can't even remember all the things they used to do, but they did most of the magazines at that point.
Right.
And so I ended up meeting all the editors and the beauty editors, and I used to do their hair and became kind of friends with them. And it kind of stood me in good stead. I then was approached by Neville Daniel, which is Neville and Daniel Hutchison.
Yes, and that used to be on Sloane Street, didn't it?
Yeah.
It was a massive, beautiful store on Sloane Street.
It was huge place.
Yeah.
So they asked me to go and manage the salon. And my wife, I should say, my wife and I to go and manage the salon. And again, we were like, no, we're quite happy. We're happy with what we're doing. And they said, well, how much would you want? So we kind of gave them the amount, and they said, okay, fine. When can you start?
This is a lot like Hair History 101, isn't it? In London at the time, really.
It is. And again, it's just like, did I want to manage a salon? No. But it's one of those things. So we went there, and we worked there for a few years quite successfully. And the only thing was that I didn't enjoy my time there 100%.
Right.
And the reason was there were lots of egos. There were a lot of old hairdressers who were not that nice to be working with.
Yeah, for anybody that does it who's much younger, it was very different in those days in England, wasn't it? And there was that kind of, I mean, some of those top stylists could be really quite mean, I think. I mean, it wouldn't happen
really mean.
now.
But they'd do stuff to for hair to go wrong. If you put something on, like a colour, they'd do something to make it go wrong, just to kind of show you're not all that.
Yeah, keep you in your place.
Yeah, and it was always the same. So I worked there for a couple of years, and I was really lucky because while I was there, I kind of met quite a few makeup artists and worked with different makeup artists. Oh, one thing I should say, when I was at Daniel Galvin, I actually did my first film hair there because they one of the makeup artists brought in some guys to have their hair cut in short back and sides, and none of the hairdressers that were there, they're having colour as well, so the reason they were brought there was for the colour, really. And then does anyone do short back and sides? And I was the only one that could do short back and sides. And it was kind of a bit of a weird thing because I was shoved in it. I was 23, 24. And suddenly I was doing all the leads for this film, which I didn't know anything about. And as far as I was concerned, it was something to do with a runner. And I had no...
I know what it is.
Yeah, it's Chariots of Fire.
Chariots of Fire. Oscar winning.
Oscar winning, Chariots of Fire. I did all the hair. So it's quite funny that you do these things. And I say, you don't know at the time what you're doing. You just do what you do.
And they lead into other things too.
Yeah.
I want to spend some time on this podcast talking about film and TV work with you.
Yeah. So we've done a little bit. Anyway, I'll tell you how I got into it, how I really got into it. And how I really got into it was that when I was working at Neville Daniel, the head of makeup design for the BBC, I used to cut her hair, and she came in and she was saying, I'm starting a new school and I'd be interested if you can think of anyone that could teach short back and sides, because I know you do short back and sides. I went, well, I don't do teaching anymore, so I couldn't do it. I sent it to Sassoon's, to Allen International and a couple of other places to see if they do it. And all those companies came back and said, no, we can't teach someone that doesn't do hair to do short back and sides unless they have a basic training in hair. So she came back to me and said, look, I've got a 2-week window which I've got for teaching people how to do short back and sides. We really need our assistant makeup artists to be able to do it if they're doing big productions. So is there an easy way of doing it? So I kind of thought about it, and I thought about a way of doing it. So I then told her, and she said, so will you come and teach it? So I then took 2 weeks off every year, well, the first year, to teach the makeup artists or the would-be makeup artists how to do short back and sides. The following year, I took a month off to teach them because they had 2 classes. Then they wanted to do refresher courses for all the makeup designers in how to do modern day hair, because a lot of them did period, but they didn't do modern hair. So
Right.
I was showing them how to do that. Anyway, at that point, I was having a lot of aggro with a lot of the hairdressers within the salon. I decided to leave, and I opened up my first salon in 1984 in Beecham Place, which, again, this is me being me. I thought it was a nice little back street in Knightsbridge, and I found a small salon, did it up. And then as soon as we moved in, I realised that across the road was San Lorenzo, where at that point Lady Diana was going in all the time.
Right.
I had Bruce Oldfield down the road from me. Just after that, Jasper Conran opened a shop next door but one to me. And then John Galliano opened a shop a little bit further down. So this little back street suddenly turned into the major fashion hub for London. And so, again, I think I was very lucky that things happened.
Had you thought about opening a salon in like real sense, or had you just sort of gone in and found a little space and just opened it?
The latter.
Oh my goodness.
That's what I mean. Honestly, Forrest Gump. I had no idea what I was doing or what letting myself into. I remember going to see my bank manager, and thank God it was the 80s. I went to see my bank manager and I said, I've got this idea for opening a salon in a small back street in Knightsbridge. And he went through my figures and he went, so what happens if it fails? I went, I guess I'll start again.
Right.
So again, it's that youth thing where you think, yeah, why not? I was 27.
Very young to open a salon as well, isn't it? 27.
Crazy. I'd advise anyone to wait a lot longer. Wait until you're in at least your mid-30s. Enjoy yourself a bit rather than get tied down with all the stress. Because then you have all the stress of dealing with staff, and also kind of the financial side. The financial side's always a bit of a horrendous thing. So you just have to get used to that as well.
So you opened your first salon, and suddenly in this area that becomes the hot spot, with all the fashion and everything else that was going on. And you started off doing Chariots of Fire. What a way to start your film career.
Yeah, it's quite a good beginning.
Yeah.
It was all downhill after that. But it's quite funny because I then, because of all those people I'd taught at the BBC broke up their makeup department. So they then went off and became self-employed makeup artists. So they were doing loads of different productions. So we did masses of TV stuff. And, you know, some of the iconic stuff, which in a way no one will remember now because it's such a long time ago. But from then, a lot of those makeup artists went into film. And because of the films they were doing, we were being asked to do hair for the films. And, you know, it's one of those things that you become someone that's trusted, and that's the main thing. And it's the main thing in hairdressing, isn't it?
Yes.
You know, people come to you because they will pay your prices, they will do what you say because they trust your knowledge.
Yes.
And that same thing happened with me, really, with the TV and film. People knew that if they said, we want this haircut to look like it's not been done for about 3 or 4 weeks, it can't look fresh, it has to look lived in. The colour has to look lived in. And very often we were being asked to do quite horrible things because it's things that go against kind of a hairdresser's brain.
Right.
To produce something that's quite ugly. And in fact, we did last year, and I don't know if you remember, we did White House Farm, which was the story about the murder in White House Farm from 1984. And there were some of those haircuts that came to revisit me that I used to do in the 80s. And maybe because I was there, I could actually do them, and they looked original. and some of the hair colours were kind of changed as well, because some of the hair colours, also if you think about 84, that was perms.
Yes.
And we're not talking soft wavy, we're talking curly perms.
Little pink rollers or little yellow rollers, yeah.
Those
Well, you know, I know all about perms in the 80s, Paul, because that's all I seemed to do was help wind and neutralise all the way through my apprenticeship. Yeah. Of the movies that you've done, what are your favourites? Obviously Chariots, I think, is probably it's your first one.
It was interesting doing... I did one with Andrew Garfield called Breathe, and it was about someone who should have died, really, and didn't. He carried on doing it, and he was in an iron lung, and they developed a way of getting him around and being able to breathe without the iron lung.
Right.
And it was really interesting working with Andrew. Andrew is one of those people that he's very focused in what he does, so it's very important to get the look right. And again, that was a haircut that couldn't look like it had just been cut, that it just looked like it was there all the time. And so, although it wasn't a big thing to do, it was something that was actually quite interesting.
Right.
We also did Fantastic Beasts, and I have to say that was great as well. Because with that, it was changing characters. I love it when you have to kind of come up with a character, and you have to kind of work with the makeup artist and what they want, and so you're kind of not working blind, but you're having to sculpt something.
I think it's difficult working with makeup artists because it's not about you and the person in front of you. No. It's about trying to get the vision of the makeup artist. So there has to be a connection between the two of you. You have to get on quite well, and you have to be able to sort of say, oh, okay, let's change it. And it's not that it's wrong, it's just it's not her vision.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. We did something called a double, and as with Jesse Eisenberg and Mia Wachowski, and that was quite interesting because that was set in another world, as it were, dystopic world, and nothing could look quite right. It had to look all a little bit odd.
Right.
And it's quite nice when you're having to do those things that don't conform to fashion. You're having to do stuff that you have to kind of... I read all the script, and then I worked with a makeup artist, and I know the makeup artist really well. She's called Jan Saul, and she's an amazing makeup artist.
Well, she's an Oscar winner as well, isn't she?
She didn't win an Oscar, but she was up for one.
Right.
I worked on that as well, because that was Bohemian Rhapsody,
yep.
which we did the hair for. I didn't do the wigs. I have to say those 70s and 80s wigs were amazing, and that's where she's really good. But I did the short haircuts. But even that was quite funny because I was cutting someone's hair, it was one of the lead's hair, and he came in and I said, I'm going away with my girlfriend this weekend, and I'd quite like my hair cut a bit shorter, a bit edgier. So I was just like, okay, fine. I said, but have you got anything that you're going to be doing? And he went, I've got nothing. I'm in wigs for the next 2 weeks. So don't worry, it'll be fine. Anyway, that was on the Friday. On the Monday morning, I had a phone call off Jan saying, what the hell have you done? I said, we're doing the opening scene. You've cut his hair really short. And we've got the opening scene, and now I'm going to have to try and recut his wig because he had a slight top piece that went with the hair. So I've now got to recut the whole thing because you've cut it really short. Why did you cut it short? And I went, he said he was wearing wigs for the next 2 weeks. And he said, he's an actor. Actors are taught to lie.
I think that's classic. That was the guy that you said to me, can you just do a quick colour for me, Jack? And I'm like, yeah, all right. Did his colour, and I'm like, oh my God, it won so many awards, that movie. That was so funny.
But that's that kind of, again, it's that thing where you don't always know what you're doing.
No.
And you have no idea if it's going to be a kind of a major kind of goal or not. And like again, last year we did Good Omens with David Tennant, Michael Sheen. And David Tennant had bright red hair. And when I saw him going out the salon, I was just like, what the hell?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. And Michael Sheen had bleached blonde hair without a toner, so it was bright yellow. And I was just like, what are we doing? This is really bad. But again, it was perfect for the
film.
The part.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. But what's interesting is that you never know what the next challenge is going to be.
Within movies or within life?
Within life. Who saw this kind of happening?
Yeah.
Who saw this kind of... it's quite amazing when I think about it. If someone had said to me, what are you going to do next year? And I'd have reeled off a whole list of things. Staying at home for 3 months was not amongst
It's not on the list, was it? No, not at all.
No.
So you've been involved with movies, Paul, for a long time now.
Yeah.
And you're one of the few hairdressers, or maybe, I don't know whether it's the only one, but one of the few hairdressers that is a voting member of BAFTA.
Yeah. And that, again, it came through, with that was one of my clients was the head of BAFTA a couple of years ago, and she was the chair. And she was saying, are you a member of BAFTA? I went, no, but they wouldn't let me in because I don't work kind of on set. I normally work off set. Occasionally I'll be pulled on set.
Yeah.
And she was just like, well, why don't you put a resume, because I know at least 10 films you've worked on. Why don't you put a resume together and send it me? So I started putting it all together, and it ended up with 2 pages of foolscap. So
a lot of films on there.
There were a lot of films on there. And in fact, I missed out Chariots of Fire because I was too embarrassed that I'd started so long ago.
Stop it!
So that was quite funny. When I sent it through, they were going, "Oh my God, why do you never tell people about all this stuff you do?" And it's just like, I don't know. It's just not me, really. You know me.
Yeah.
I'm not one that goes around shouting about. I like to be known for what I do rather than who I do.
Yeah.
And I like, again, being slightly in the background. I'm not one that likes shoving my face in front of a camera.
Well, it's quite funny in the salon, though, isn't it? The calibre of actors and actresses and stuff that come in there.
Yeah.
And everyone's just sat normally. There's no... I mean, the young stuff obviously sometimes get a bit starstruck, but they're all trained not to do anything, make anyone feel any comfortable. And you've just got people just chatting away.
I remember Julie Walters coming in, and we had one of the new juniors shampoo the colour off her hair. And the junior kind of went, "So what do you do?" And she went, "Oh, I'm an actress." And she went, "Oh, that's a really hard job, isn't it? Do you get much work?"
Bless the kids, hey.
When she was dragged to one side by the other juniors and slapped about, she was just like, "Oh my God." But again, it's that thing that I think part of the reason that those actors come in is because they've got refuge from fame, as it were. It's not having everyone... we treat everyone really well, but we try not to treat those people better.
No, everyone gets treated the same. And I think that's what people like about it too.
Yeah. And, Emma Thompson's been one of my clients for years, and we've gone through quite... Actually, I have to say something about her. When I first did her hair, I used to do Alan Rickman's hair for all his films, and Alan recommended her because she'd been in LA and she'd grown her hair really long and very blonde. And she was coming over to this country to do a film with her mother called The Winter's Tale. And it was set up in kind of Scotland, and she was supposed to be a woman that had gone through major trauma and cut off her hair. And so she had it tinted dark red from having this blonde LA look to having dark red and a short haircut. Anyway, she didn't know where to go to for a haircut. And Alan Rickman said, there's only one person you can go to in London, that has to be Paul Edmonds. So she came in, of course, and I'd rung up my friend in America that worked with her and said, look, what's she like? And they went, oh, she's really nice, she'll get on. And I went, you're not really giving me a lot here. I need a bit more information. Give me a bit more. I went, you'll really like her. It's like, thanks a lot. So she came in the salon and I really liked her. She kind of said, right, I'm doing this film, so I need my hair cut. And I said, oh, what, do you want it a little bit shorter? And she went, no, I want it cut short. So I went, okay, so what, here? And she said, no, I want it cut short. And she had it kind of cut to about that length and kind of clipped around the sides and the back. And I have to say, I think I was the one in shock. She was quite cool about the whole thing and quite happy with everything that we were doing. But it took me a little while to get over it. But again, she'd had her hair cut short quite a few times. And when she did Angels in America, I don't know if you saw that.
Yes, I saw that. Of course I saw that, yeah. She
kind of had it cut really short for that. And then she did another thing, which I can't remember the name of it now. She played a woman who... Wit, it was called, which is... If you haven't seen this film called Wit, get it out and watch it. It's brilliant. About a woman suffering from cancer. She loses all her hair, so she had her head shaved for that. So she's not one to kind of pussyfoot around and go, oh, I don't think I can really do that.
I know, because you've actually got two sides of the coin, haven't you? You've got the actors that just immerse themselves and go for it, and then you've got others who are a little bit more neurotic about their hair.
Yeah, we won't talk about them.
Yeah. No, it's the stories that we can tell that we won't.
Can't really.
What an amazing career in film, and still going strong as well, which I think is fabulous.
Which I think we've got some lined up for when we actually open up. Apparently the films are starting up, I think, August, September. There's some TV stuff that's starting now, and there's a couple of TV things that are being finished off, I think, from next month.
Right.
But most of it starts August, September. So
for the audience, as we record this, we are tentatively awaiting maybe an announcement today that we go back July 4th, but we'll wait and see. So this will be coming out a little bit later. Paul, you've got two salons now. You've got the most stunning salon in Knightsbridge. I was drawn not only to your peaceful soul to somebody to work with, which you know I need,
no.
But also I was drawn to just the sheer lux of the venue as well, that it was really smart, and I felt like that, it felt really good to me when I walked in there. Then you've also opened an uber luxe salon at Battersea Power Station, which of course is just being all renovated. How do you manage your team? Seriously, I mean, there will be a lot of people just like, how do you do that? How do you manage your time, your team, and how do you look after yourself?
Well, myself.
Yourself. Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot. I'm very lucky that my business partner, is amazing, and he does a lot of the stuff. And quite early on in our kind of business relationship, he said, I want you to stay the nice man and I'll be the one that says things.
Good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say we're quite that, but if people want to try and get round me or get round to do something, they will come to me first. And one of the things that I had to learn was that if you're managing a business, you have to let managers manage a business, and you have to do what you do. So we have a salon manager, Zoe, you know really well. And she can do a lot of shouting if necessary. Not very often, but she can shout. Yasha doesn't shout. He just calmly goes through things and points stuff out. So I allow them to do that. So that's how I manage, by not managing.
Systems. You have systems in place.
Yeah, and I think, we've got over 50 staff, maybe 60 staff, so you have to have systems. Now we're coming into opening up again. Again, the systems are all changing, and it's going to be a complete revolution. from our point of view, and I think it will be for the industry. So I think it's going to be a really interesting time, and I think we have to take this as being a good thing that's happening. There's lots of bad, but there's good bits coming out of it.
Yeah, I certainly think there are good bits coming out of it. I think 14 weeks of, or whatever it is now, is like unheard of.
Yeah.
But I think that we can definitely redefine the industry when we go back.
Yeah. And I think it has to be more professional. We have to be seen as being professional.
Yeah.
We have to do our best to kind of elevate the standing of hairdressers, because the one thing that does piss me off, and it pisses me off quite often, is when people go, "Oh, you're a hairdresser," and they think that you're someone that kind of just fluffs in a little back room somewhere and makes people look pretty. They don't realise the amount of time, effort and thought that goes into not only doing hair, but actually running a business.
Yes. Well, they say you're a hairdresser. They say to me, just a colorist. Just colour. Which makes me giggle too.
Yeah. And again, it's not one of those things that I can go into because I'm not a colorist. No, I think, as I say, one of the things I learned at Daniel Galvin years ago was to respect people for what they do. And I think that's what you have to do, because you do things that I could not do. I would probably do things that, one, you can't do, but also